following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the third episode of Sports Chatter TV. I'm your host, Evan Medell, alongside my co-host here, Steve Atkinson. And we're a show that discusses and debates the four major professional sports in the United States. And let's get it going with the NHL playoffs that just happened. Talk about the Bruins versus the Penguins. Game 3 just happened last night in the Eastern Conference Finals. And Bruins are up 2-1 after a double overtime win.
Absolutely incredible game. I mean, it was a late night, certainly. I didn't think it was going to go to double OT. And then, lo and behold, it did. I mean, Char himself played 40 minutes. Those guys must have been gassed.
What'd you think about Tuukka Rask last night? Stood on his head, 53 saves. I mean, Thomas Vokoun, the goalie for Pittsburgh, also played well. But I think that was the best game I've ever seen Tuukka Rask play, and it was in the playoffs, a crucial game.
Absolutely. Tuukka's playing his best hockey right now. I mean, you said it yourself, 53 saves last night. The guy only let one in. Crosby's still scoreless right now. It's just unbelievable. I mean, his goals against, he had a 98% save percentage. I mean, the guy's just standing on his head. And like you said, you got to give credit to Vokoun as well. Obvious choice for who you want in net. I mean, Fleury, he's a sieve right now. But honestly, Vokoun's playing some great hockey. He's just not getting much help up front.
I know. I was surprised. I thought after Game 2 when they pulled Vokoun and they put in Fleury, I thought Fleury for sure was going to get the Game 3 start. I mean, it was their starting goaltender all year. And Dan Bylsma, the Pittsburgh Penguins coach, goes back to Vokoun for the start of Game 3. But a big focal point that people are talking about today is the play of Gregory Campbell, who, if people don't know, he blocked a crucial shot there on the Penguins power play by Evgeny Malkin, and he broke his leg. Obviously, people didn't know that time, but he went down, stayed on for a whole minute, and hobbled off the ice, and you find out today that he breaks his leg.
I mean, this guy is just the epitome of toughness. When you think hockey, you think, wow, Gregory Campbell. I mean, like you said, broken right tibia. You know, the guy lays out on the ice, blocks a slap shot from Evgeny Malkin. That thing's got to be close to 100 miles per hour. And then, like you said, he stayed out there for another 45 seconds to kill off the penalty. And Penguins were obviously targeting him, being the hurt guy, and he was still blocking passing lanes and just playing lights-out hockey. I mean, just unbelievable. And I thought it was pretty classy of the Bruins as well to chant his name once he made it to the bench.
Yeah, chanting Gregory when he comes off the ice. But to me, I think the Bruins stole that game last night, to be honest. I mean, I thought that was the best the Penguins have played out of all 3 games that they had played. And, I mean, they didn't play well the first 2 games. But I don't think anyone expected the Bruins to be up 2-0 coming out of Pittsburgh, going back into Boston. And for the Bruins to basically win that game last night, to steal it, I think. I mean, Pittsburgh hit how many posts, you know? But they pretty much stole that game, and I think they're fortunate to win it. But to be up 3-0 going into the game tomorrow night, Friday night, at the Garden, the place is going to be rocking.
Oh, yeah.
So you know the Bruins are looking to have that killer instinct. I mean, that's been their, I guess you could say, Achilles heel the past couple of years. You had first-round series this year against Toronto. They were up. Toronto forces the Game 7. Bruins were fortunate to win there. And, you know, I don't want to bring it up, but everyone remembers against the Flyers, Bruins the only team.
Yes.
So you hate to bring that up, but how do you think the Bruins will fare tomorrow night? Do you think they have that killer instinct to, you know, finish Pittsburgh while they're down?
I mean, you got to think so. Like you said, being up 3 games, you got a nice little cushion there. But honestly, I think that double OT winner was just the dagger in Pittsburgh's heart. I mean, those guys were hustling the entire game. You could tell they wanted it, and then the Bruins just shut them down. And, I mean, Crosby himself must have been crying going back to the locker room.
I know.
It's a tough loss. And I like their chances going into Game 4. I mean, a home game, the 300s are going to be rocking. You know, the crowd's going to be on the Bruins' side. And you got to watch out for Pittsburgh, though. You know, the adjustments that they've made, you can notice it. I mean, the Bruins were having trouble in the neutral zone. They're having trouble breaking it out. Penguins are dumping the puck in more. But I still like their chances going in.
I think the Bruins are going to take it tomorrow night, go for the sweep here.
I think so.
But going back to Game 1, we had Matt Cook. Like we said, I think 2 weeks ago, first episode of the show, talked about Matt Cook a little bit. I mean, he's runs around. He's known for having dirty hits. Takes out Adam McQuaid behind the net from behind. doesn't get suspended for game 2. People, oh, should he be suspended? Does his history play a role here? But he doesn't. Plays game 2. I think he played well last night, game 3. I thought he was one of the Penguins' better players. I mean, he played his role. He's an agitator. He got under people's skins. He's sort of like a Brad Marchand for the Bruins, except I think Marchand's obviously clearly more skilled offensively. And, I mean, but that Matt Cook hit not getting suspended was a big focal point going into game 2. And I think for the rest of the series, people are sort of looking for revenge on Matt Cook.
Absolutely. I mean, just look at the guy's past. He took out Savard, career ender. I mean, and Horton as well. And you can't forget that. And then, of course, you got the major in the other game. And, people, I mean, Thornton especially, when he's on the ice, he's looking for him, and you can tell. And I think something that's kind of funny, actually, is that going into last night's game, Cook had more points in the series than Crosby did. I mean, the guy's playing good hockey right now, and like you said, he knows his role, and he's getting under everybody's skin. He's playing good hockey, but thankfully, the Bruins are shutting him down as well.
I just want to throw this out there before we move on. Sidney Crosby, 0 points in 3 games. Chara obviously playing his role, up for the Norris this year, given the best defenseman. Against another finalist is Chris Letang, who plays for Pittsburgh. I think Chara, after this series, it should be clear that he deserves the Norris just for his play alone. But moving on to the Western Conference Finals just for a little bit, we have obviously Chicago Blackhawks versus the LA Kings. Chicago, up 2-1 in the series. I mean, Jonathan Quick's been the reason. I've been saying all along, I think LA is going to the finals against the Bruins. Jonathan Quick playing well this series. And Chicago, see if they can close it out here.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to look at it. Their stars are starting to wake up. They're playing well. They got 2 quick wins there. But the thing about LA, and this has been something that you can notice the whole season, they're terrible on the road. They just don't win on the road. And so coming back home, you knew that they were going to take that game, and they're going to take the next one. And they're just going to continue to ride off Quick. I mean, 98% save percentage. It's just absurd. The guy, one of the best goaltenders possibly ever. And, his players are feeding off that energy, and they're finding each other out there, and they're putting the puck in the net.
LA, their Achilles heel, no offense. I mean, they have good offensive players. You got Mike Richards, even though he's been out for the past two games.
Yes.
We got upper body injury, they said. Not specifics. You don't really know what it is.
A plethora of things.
You got Dustin Brown, their captain. He's been playing all right. I mean, I guess looking in the Western Conference compared to Eastern, Dustin Brown is LA's Patrice Bergeron. I mean, they both great two-way players. But I think LA, they need more offense pretty much. They're leaving Quick out there by himself. They got great players, like I said, and I think LA, if they can just get a couple in, I mean, Chicago, Corey Crawford, he's a good goalie. He's not anywhere up to the caliber of Jonathan Quick. So if they can just put a couple in and tie this series up, make it 2-2, I mean, it's anyone's game at that point.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I was saying I thought San Jose was going to go deep. But right now in this series, I do think LA is going to end up taking it, like you said, because Quick is just playing unbelievable, and he needs his offense to match his level of play right now. I mean, you mentioned a couple of the guys, especially too, Anze Kopitar. He's not really doing anything that noticeable out there. He's making body checks, he's putting pucks on net, but we need him. They really need him to just start nipping the corners like he can do, and just, frankly, score goals.
Another NHL story that's coming out. People don't know. Rangers coach John Tortorella, after the Bruins beat them in the last series, he got fired, and reports are coming out that the great Mark Messier and the legend, greatest player of all time, the one, Wayne Gretzky, both want to be head coach of the Rangers. And while Messier has no coaching experience in the AHL, which is the minor leagues for hockey, or the NHL, Gretzky coached Phoenix Coyotes from 2005 to 2009, so he has some experience. Yes. I mean, Phoenix, not that great of a franchise, but he did what he could there. And they both won it. And, I mean, I think you got to give it to Gretzky. 1, because he's the greatest player to ever live. And 2, he has experience. So I think if they're going to choose between them two, if it comes down between them two, I think you got to go with Gretzky there, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, Gretzky, the thing, I got to go with Gretzky here as well. The thing about Gretzky is he has the experience. He's coached before. He knows what it takes. he put his blood, sweat, and tears into the Coyotes. I mean, the performance wasn't there to show it, but 3 out of the 4 years he was out there, he was really, really trying to get these guys motivated. But my one issue with him is I think that players in the locker room are having a hard time understanding the difference between being in the locker room with the great one and understanding that he's their coach and he needs them to perform. I think they're a little starstruck in there almost. But obviously, he's expressed interest in being the Rangers head coach, and I think he gets the job over Messier. Messier, obviously a great leader, great motivator, but he doesn't have the experience, Does he have what it takes to bring guys down to the AHL? Can you tell him to do suicides? I don't know.
I mean, New York City
think?
alone for any sport is a tough job, so you hope that he has the grit, I guess you could say, the courage to make tough decisions. But I mean, I still think it's going to be Gretzky in the end if it comes down to between them two.
I think that Messier could be a great fit in New York, but he needs a good assistant coach, someone that can do the X's and the O's for him. Because, I mean, while he does know the game, he needs a more technical side because he can motivate the guys and he can get them going.
All right. It's enough NHL talk for now. Coming up, so you guys, people, stay tuned because we have sort of an exclusive interview coming up with a former NBA executive for nearly 10 years, Steve Candeloro, coming up next. So don't change the channel because he's coming up. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Sports Chatter TV. If you can't tell, we picked up a special guest here, Steve Candeloro, former NBA executive for nearly 10 years, from 1998 to 2008. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you, boys. Good to be here. I'm a big fan of the show.
Thanks for coming along.
Anytime.
Yep. So if people don't know, it's Game 1 tonight of the NBA Finals. You have the Miami Heat versus the San Antonio Spurs. And just to give fans an update, it's 18-15, San Antonio with the lead with about 3 minutes left to go in the first quarter. So what do you think about the Finals?
How many future Hall of Famers are on these two teams? So that's a classic. You've got Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, LeBron James. On Spurs, you got Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili. You got both coaches, okay? So it's a classic matchup. I hope it goes 7. I don't want to see a sweep. I'm hoping it's not a sweep.
Who do you think? I know San Antonio clearly has more experience with Parker, Ginobili, and Duncan. And then you have, I guess you could call the younger big three, if you want to say, with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. But Wade and Bosh have pretty much been non-existent the playoffs. Do you think LeBron can carry the Heat by himself pretty much?
No, he's going to need help. He clearly needs to get Chris Bosh, Chris Anderson. They really are going to have to step up their game. And I don't know if they have any more energy left. They look very tired. The Spurs have been laying in the weeds for 9 days. I've got a feeling the Spurs have just been sitting in front of the television, just watching. And I think Miami's got their hands full. That's just me. Just me personally.
But say San Antonio wins.
Okay.
Wins the finals.
Okay.
What do you think? Where do you think that puts Tim Duncan?
Well, he's already top 10. He's already top 10 all time. He's the greatest player of his generation. Sorry, Kobe. I think if you've got 5 NBA championships, all the MVPs, both in the regular season and the playoffs, you can make a case for Tim Duncan. Definitely top 10, top 5. You might have some conversations. You might have some debate, but he's clearly just you can't even begin to describe Tim Duncan's game. I mean, first of all, he's so quiet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He doesn't promote himself. He just goes out and play ball, and you can't argue with winning.
You can't. That's true.
Can't argue.
It's the best trip
I feel like San Antonio is always the team that people just forget about. I mean, you always talk about they're always a great team. They're always up there. And then you always talk about, the Heat, the Lakers, the Celtics, all those teams. And then San Antonio, every year in the playoffs, they go for a deep run. And then you're like, oh, there's San Antonio again.
Exactly.
As usual.
It's like the old dog. You just take your dog for granted, but he's always there. And Greg Popovich is just a brilliant strategy guy. He gets the most out of his players. And for guys who are going to make a mistake, he just shoots that withering look that will melt your shoelaces. But it's hard to pick against the Spurs. I know it's the Heat. The Heat have the momentum of LeBron James, who's been playing extraordinary basketball for 2 years.
Absolutely.
But I just think that the 9-day rest is going to help the Spurs, and But hey, it's a 50-50 shot. I'm either right or I'm
Yeah.
wrong, so, you know.
Certainly plays a factor. I mean, now say hypothetically that the Spurs do win. What do you think that does for the LeBron-Michael Jordan debate comparison?
When I'm comparing players, I like to wait until they're retired. Okay, so I got to give LeBron another 8 years to see where he's, because I have a list of top 50, top 20. Everybody does,
Yeah.
right?
Of course.
But I know if you're still playing, I don't have you on my list yet. Michael Jordan won 6 championships. LeBron's got 1, right?
Yep.
Got a ways to go. Got a ways to go. But LeBron, there's no peer for LeBron right now. He has no equal. You know, Larry Bird had Magic Johnson. You know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had a tremendous 20-year career where he had to face great centers. I just don't see anybody else in LeBron's class. And Michael Jordan, he didn't really have a peer, did he? I mean,
Not really.
not really, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Kind of uncontested.
yeah, you know, and obviously Michael Jordan had a great supporting cast. That's been LeBron's problem, that he didn't have it with the Cavaliers, and he never really had. It would have been interesting. Give LeBron a second superstar on the Cavaliers, and we might be talking 3 or 4 championships to LeBron, and that's where the Michael Jordan factor would come into play.
Definitely an interesting finals this year. But let's get more into your career. Per
Okay.
se. Obviously, you worked in the NBA. You were a member of the Global Merchandising Group. And so tell us how it was working in the NBA.
I had the best time of my life. I'm not going to lie to you. I just had an extraordinary time with people who love to work. And David Stern, I got a chance to work with him. I met him. Can I tell you about the first time I met him? Because
Yes,
we were
absolutely.
talking.
Please,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. We were talking.
Viewers want to know.
Okay, we were talking backstage. Okay, so I got hired to help open the NBA retail store, 35,000 square foot store, 2 floors on 5th Avenue, 52nd Street. Okay, so I got hired to help put the store together. About 2 days before we opened up, we had a little party, small reception on the lower level of the NBA store. And we were told that everybody in their department is going to get their picture taken with David Stern. Okay.
Kind of cool.
Absolutely, right? Because, you know, you've seen him. It's
Yeah.
like he's the boss, okay? He's a genius, and, you know, other than Pete Rozelle, he's on the top 2 of sports commissioners all time. So my group gets together, and sure enough, there's David. He comes in. You know, he's been mingling with people, and, okay, it's time to bring David Stern into the picture. So we all line up. There's about 7 of us, and the photographer is about 5 seconds away from taking the picture, and you hear a voice go, "Remember, failure is not an option." Okay, so they took the picture, right? Then my coworkers are a little younger than I am, and, you know, David moves on to the next group, and we all just, you know, kind of look at each other, and half of my coworkers go, "What did he mean by that? What does that mean if we failure?" And you could just see a little bit of combination of terror and, oh my God, the reputation of him is true. But he was, if you dealt with him on any level, at any event, or any request through his office, as long as you did what he asked, he was great. Okay? He was very clear. Instructions were issued. Just give David what he wants, and you're fine. I did a tour of a group of Chinese businessmen right before the 2008 Olympics with David, and I gave the tour, and he gave me his credit card to say, okay, whatever they want is on me. So I did it, took care of it. I did a couple of media interviews with him. I once walked with the mayor of London, England,
Wow.
through the NBA store with David, with a bunch of camera crews in tow. Now, you talk about pressure, right?
Yeah.
I had about 24 hours notice. So
So you weren't nervous at all then? Is what you're saying?
No, because I had given tours of the NBA store before, and I went home. I got a good night's sleep. I made sure that, you know, I knew my material. I got there early, and sure enough, you know, about 20 minutes before the mayor of London is going to come through the front door, here comes Commissioner Stern and, you know, his small group, and he gives me a look, and it's like, okay, we're good. So, you know, and it went fine, and he thanked me, and just a brilliant guy. If you look at the history of the NBA, he brought it in. He was miles ahead of all the other sports leagues. NBA.com was ahead of its time. NBA TV, okay? He's brought the game internationally.
Absolutely.
And you can go and watch an NBA game in over 200 countries on television.
Big global sport, obviously.
Huge, huge. China, the NBA wants to get into India now. They want to bring basketball to India, and what an opportunity that is. And he retires February 1, 2014. He is retiring. 30 years
Quite the legacy.
to the day.
Yeah.
And I know his replacement.
Adam Silver.
Yes.
Obviously. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Yes, he's currently the deputy commissioner. He is a bright man. He's been with David for about 15, 16 years, so he understands the direction the league wants to go in. Adam's biggest strength is that he gets along with everybody. The players know him. The general managers, the owners know him. I think you'll probably see a similar path that David's taken to expand the game at an international level. David, I think sometimes people get a little fearful of him because he's got a reputation. But again, I never had a problem with him. And on my final day, I actually met with him for 30 minutes.
Wow.
I got a chance to, he thanked me for my contributions, and we had a conversation. I can't tell you what that conversation was. Well, I could tell you a little bit, but I know that he was grateful for the work, because you do work hard at the NBA. You do work a lot of hours, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of holidays. So he thanked me. He did tell me he was not going to write a book. I asked him specifically, because he was under the impression that if he took a lot of notes with the idea of writing a book in mind, he thought that people wouldn't give him an honest answer.
Yeah.
Because he asked a lot of questions. He asked a lot of questions. So he knew if he were taking notes for a future book, he just thought people wouldn't be forthcoming. So he has shut that idea down, and others will write the history of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously you worked in the NBA store too on Fifth Avenue in New York City. So obviously you met famous athletes, NBA players, and obviously other celebrities and whatnot. So did you ever get any weird, odd requests or any cool experiences with these people?
Well, my primary job was, if any NBA players or coaches or celebrities came in to shop, it was my job to help them. I had a staff of 2, and we were to just assist them, give them a business card for future business. So the one interesting thing for the players, you know what a bobblehead doll is?
Yeah. Yep.
Right, okay. So we sold 3-foot bobbleheads of the players. And only the certain players, because let's face it, they're $450. They're 3 feet, okay, they're big. But the company would take a request from a player they hadn't created yet. But the stipulation was, well, if Jalen Rose is going to come in and want a bobblehead, he's going to have to order 12 of them, because the company is not just going to make up one bobblehead. So, player wants his own bobblehead. He would have 12 3-foot bobbleheads, and what the players did was they would use them to raise money at charity auctions. They would sign them. So somewhere out in the world, a couple of the NBA players have multiple bobbleheads.
Just hanging out.
Just hanging out somewhere. You'll look on eBay. I'm sure you'll see a 3-foot bobblehead. So that you would tell a player, sure, we can do a 3-foot bobblehead. You just have to buy 12 of them. But they got an employee discount. So
so that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
But obviously they sold jerseys and whatnot there. What do you think personally was like the highest selling jersey? Was there one player in particular?
Well,
like Michael Jordan, Bird.
Well, the NBA likes to keep track of these things. If anything, the company is very numbers oriented. So you could get monthly sales reports for every player, and then you would get a yearly sales report. So I worked there from '98 to 2008. Obviously, Michael Jordan was at the tail end of his Bulls career, so that turned out still to be the #1 seller. But then he retires, and all of a sudden, Shaq and Kobe, and then Allen Iverson. AI, baby. AI comes
I
in.
myself bought an AI jersey.
Oh, thank you very much.
76ers,
Excellent. So then you would see whatever player was kind of leading his team, and then when 2003 came, here comes LeBron and Carmelo and Chris Bosh, and those guys started to dominate. But you would see a top 10 list every month, and the NBA would just love to release the numbers. And Michael Jordan still was in there for, he came back with the Wizards.
Yep.
And he was in the top 10 consistently. We loved MJ.
So we obviously talked about sort of how NBA is a global sport. So speaking of China, how is it viewed over there? I know we were talking earlier about Tracy McGrady. If people don't know, he went overseas earlier this year and was playing over there and was a mega superstar. I mean, he was out of this world to them. And obviously, he comes back to play in the NBA. And I mean, it's Tracy McGrady, obviously a great player, but I mean, he's nothing. I mean, no one really made a big deal out of it, but he goes over there and he's a superstar.
Yes. When Yao Ming comes to the NBA, plays in the Houston Rockets, obviously China can start watching their games. Well, they already know about Yao Ming. But when they see number one, I think the question was, who is this T-Mac they speak of? That's his nickname. And Tracy McGrady and Yao Ming did a series of Reebok commercials that ran in China for a long time. So he now becomes a huge star in China, where when the Rockets played a preseason game in China, he can't even walk down the street. He can't even get into the airport without media crews waiting for him. And he then just becomes this, I'm going to say, on a level of popularity that's Michael Jordan-esque. It's very similar. And then Tracy McGrady winds up playing in China, and ironically, now back in the NBA with San Antonio Spurs. And T-Mac has a chance to get a ring. So it's kind of nice for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. First thing I do is, if the Spurs win, I'm Tracy McGrady, I'm going over to China. And I'm
thanking them for the support.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, pay it back.
So, obviously, the NBA, big sport. They have, like most of the major professional sports do, they have the All-Star game.
Yes.
And then, as well, sort of cherry on top, per se, they have the NBA Slam Dunk Contest, which is a big deal, but I think in the last couple of years it's sort of been watered down because it's not really more about the dunks anymore. It's more about the theatrics. You got Dwight Howard, the Superman cape, Nate Robinson jumping over the car and whatnot, but obviously still a big deal.
Right. I think the NBA will probably tweak their All-Star weekend at some point. If you're not going to have your top superstars participate in a dunk contest, okay, you can have the second-tier players come in, but let's face it, I think the dunks are almost played out.
Yeah.
Okay?
You can only come up with or create so many new dunks before you start. What you see now, I think, is you see people just repeating
I have the same
dunks
problem.
and variations.
When I
sort
dunk,
of a little variations on them.
I can't even count on one hand how many guys have busted out the Superman cape. I mean, guys are blowing out candles on cupcakes and stuff. It's like, what?
I mean, you see Vince Carter. I think it was 2000 when he did the between the legs, and that was unbelievable. That's to me the most famous NBA dunk contest.
What about Blake Griffin jumping over the key?
I thought that was overrated just because
I agree.
you've seen people jump over people, which is, I mean, the people are almost taller than the small Kia car. I mean, I think it was cool because it was a car and whatnot, and that was, he brings the car out, they park it,
They're a marketing
product
partner.
placement, you got the Kia
right.
car.
Make
So,
the marketing partner happy.
I mean, if you pay attention to small details, you see whatnot, and then, but I think you just right now you don't really see anything new. You just see a little tweak here and there.
Okay. Well, it's a 3-day event, All-Star Weekend. Starts on a Friday, ends on a Sunday, and it's a showcase for the NBA to put out their best and brightest talent. So you've got the rookie-sophomore game, celebrity basketball game. Okay. You've got the three-point contest, slam dunk, and then you've got the skills competition. Okay. So maybe if I'm running the NBA. Maybe you take the slam dunk out of it every other year.
Okay.
How about that? This way you give guys 2 years to kind of, work in their game.
I think not to harp on this, but I think another problem with the dunk contest is that you don't have the superstars doing it.
Right.
You don't have LeBron. I mean, Kobe's not really much of a dunker, but you don't have Kobe. You had Blake Griffin. That was their big catch this year. Dwight Howard's not doing it anymore. And, they say pay LeBron money to do it and whatnot, which I don't think you should do. But I think we talked about you can only do so many dunks. To get more people to be enticed by the dunk contest and sort of revive it, you sort of have to get the superstars to do it. You can't have, my third player off the bench. He's not a good all-around player, but he can fly on the court.
Well, how about that then, right? You've got 15 players on every NBA team. So there's 450 guys who could be in the slam dunk contest if they wanted. Now, you have to ask every one of them.
Yeah.
Now, if 440 of them are saying no, then maybe it's time to shut down the slam dunk contest. Because LeBron, you can't let's face it, if you told LeBron or whoever NBA superstar, okay, we'll give you $1 million to be in the slam dunk. Well, what if LeBron breaks an ankle?
That's true.
It's
You know.
the issue, yeah.
That's a problem. But you've got 450 players who could be in the slam dunk contest. Now, certainly you can get 8 of them to put on a show. Now, I don't know what other motivation that, you can put your name on the map by winning a slam dunk contest if you're if you're the 12th man on a team, but you can dunk the heck out of a ball. I would say less is more. If Adam Silver's watching, I would take, right. So there's always room to improve it. I say, if you take it away, maybe that makes people, boy, we really missed the dunk contest. How about a two-year gap then?
I'll give the NBA credit, though. I think the All-Star game is the best All-Star game besides the NHL because I think the players actually try. Because I think it's more pride. And you see the fourth quarter, you see in the first 2 quarters, playing around, sort of pick up. In the third and fourth quarter, you see the players, start to actually play. It's competitive. It's more you're not playing for you're playing for pride at that point, and you see them actually try, which I think is actually beneficial to the NBA, rather than just goofing around.
Right, from the corporate side of it, it takes a year to plan the NBA All-Star Game. Okay, so there are already employees who are, the NBA's All-Star Game has 9 more months to go. Okay, but they're already working on it. They're already working on the logos and the logistics because it's spread out over whatever city it's in. And when it goes to a city like Los Angeles one year, okay, I know the players want to go because let's face it, there's a lot to do in Los Angeles over 3 days. Okay, it's in the middle of winter. Okay, it gives fans a reason to stay inside and watch something pretty good. Can I tell you a quick story about?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so we had the All-Star Game in Los Angeles, and if you've ever been to Los Angeles, traffic is hard. Okay, rush hour is a 4-hour. It's just terrible. Traffic. You can't get anywhere unless you drive. Okay, so we had to get the players, all the NBA players, to their practice facility on a Friday. Well, we got permission to put roadblocks on the exit ramps of one of the LA freeways, and we put all the players in several vans, and we drove them from the hotel, got them onto the freeway, and shut traffic down, and got them right through, and got them right to their destination in about 20 minutes. We had helicopters.
Wow.
We had the LAPD, and and if you ever tie up traffic in Los Angeles, people will shake their fist at you. But the NBA brings in a lot of tourists. They spend a lot of money. People come in, and it's a beneficial boost to the city. But we got to shut down traffic.
That's pretty cool.
It is awesome.
Yeah,
California,
to say
yeah.
I shut down traffic.
Yeah, right. Got to get Shaq to the practice facility. That's right.
So obviously we talked about earlier. You worked in the NBA from 1998 to 2008, and obviously there was a lot of games played during that time, and there's a lot of memorable moments.
Yes.
So I thought we might run through a few. Me and Steve think memorable moments.
Go for it.
Starting off with Michael Jordan comes back from retirement to play for the Washington Wizards in September of 2001.
Yes, he returns for 2 seasons, 2001 and 2003. Wizards sold out every single game that Michael Jordan played at, and like you mentioned earlier, one of his jerseys was the top seller. I mean, I bought it as well. The other jersey I bought. Yeah, I
So
participated in that as well.
Mike
Yeah.
Jordan jersey, yeah.
He obviously moved from being president of basketball operations to go play, and he made a lot of significant moves while he was there, getting Kwame Brown first pick overall and signing Larry Hughes too. Michael Jordan, however, felt like he was being used, like he was a publicity stunt, and once his career was officially done, they didn't let him return.
Yeah.
So, Steve, I have 2 questions for you.
Fire away.
Do you think Jordan tarnished his image by returning to play? And also, do you feel like the Wizards might have used him as a publicity stunt?
I don't think he tarnished his image because he is probably, other than maybe a Bill Russell type of guy, the most competitive athlete in the NBA history. And he likes to, he'll be competitive at cards on the golf course. So he felt he could still play at a level where he could contribute. Now, do I think the Wizards used him? Well, the Wizards before Michael Jordan weren't really on the NBA map. They've only had one championship in their history, I believe. If I'm wrong about that, sorry.
I believe you're correct.
Okay, excellent. I think from the Wizards' point of view, Sure, they're going to sell out. They're going to sell jerseys. Now, it's mine. I've read there's a couple of NBA books out there. Michael Jordan might have been interested in ownership, but Abe Pollan was the owner of the Wizards at the time. I think he just didn't see Michael Jordan as a business partner. I think Abe Pollan was just one of those old school NBA guys who said, okay, I'm the owner. I own 98% of it. I'm not going to sell 25% of it to Michael Jordan.
Right.
But, Michael Jordan probably could have played another year, but not at a Jordan-esque level.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, he had a lot. He was worn down by the end of the season, and I don't think the Wizards made the playoffs. Right? I think
They did not, no.
Right. They came close. If the Wizards made the playoffs, could Michael Jordan have gotten on a run? I don't know. I mean, he was an old 38 or 39.
Yeah.
He had a lot of
Pushing
mileage.
40.
Yes, and he had a lot of playoff games under his belt. So I think physically Michael Jordan's like, hey, at least I gave it a shot. And I think if you ask him today, he probably thinks he can still play.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the answer to the questions there. Good questions.
Speaking of old players, 2 years later in 2003, a bunch of young kids coming in the NBA, considered the best NBA draft class ever. You had the LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade. So, in your opinion, what do you think about that draft class? Do you think it was the best ever, or in consideration?
Yes, you can make it, and you forgot Darko Milicic.
Okay,
yeah.
the number 2 pick.
My man Darko,
Yep,
right.
taking over Carmelo.
Can you imagine if the Pistons had selected Carmelo Anthony? Coming off think about that team, right? Tayshaun Prince, you had Rasheed Wallace, and you put a guy like Carmelo on there. I met all of those guys except Darko. They passed through the NBA, and they were so young. They're barely 20. LeBron was 18. I think Carmelo was probably 19. Bosh was 19. Stoudemire was 19. And they were all so skinny.
Just kids.
Yeah.
They were kids. I remember Amari Stoudemire coming in and he had to be 210 pounds. He was just a string bean. And Chris Bosh, just a lanky. If you didn't see his height, you would think he was just a high school kid. Certainly, if you add up the championships, that LeBron will probably win at least 3. You got to figure before Chris Bosh is going to piggyback on that too. Carmelo Anthony, I don't know. I don't know how many championships Carmelo. He might get 1. I have a feeling Carmelo will win an NBA championship on a team other than the Knicks. Okay. And who's our fourth?
We had Carmelo, Anthony, Bosh, and Wade.
Wade. See, D. Wade. See, now Dwayne Wade. When I met Dwayne Wade very early, he came in for an NBA event and just had a maturity about him. And you could see that for LeBron James to go with Dwayne Wade and go play the Heat, that's kind of a no-brainer for LeBron. Good for LeBron. And I think Dwayne Wade said, I'm secure enough that I can let LeBron come in and, we'll co-pilot this team. And I think that's overrated when people talk about, Dwayne, this is no longer Dwayne Wade's team.
I think he welcomed it, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. Dwayne Wade is not smart guy, right?
2 friends, hey, come play with me.
Yeah, right?
He had Shaq come and play. They win a championship, right? This is now their 3rd NBA Finals in a row. So Dwayne Wade, I think, understands that he, you know what? I don't have to be the guy. Yes, I want to be a big contributor. I think in the Eastern Conference Finals with the Pacers, I think Dwayne Wade made it let LeBron know. Hey, how about passing that ball? And if you go back and look at some of the post-game conference, Dwayne Wade said it in a manner that didn't insult LeBron, but got the message across. And that's what you need. You need guys, because they're now, they're the leaders.
Yeah.
8 years ago when they came in, 2003 when they came into the NBA, well, they're the children. Well, now the children are the parents, and they need to, lead by example. But I can make a case that's the strongest NBA draft on record, although there's a couple maybe in the late 60s and maybe late 70s, when Magic Johnson came in, the Stockton Malone.
Okay, yeah.
We'll have to go get the NBA encyclopedia and battle it out.
So, moving on to sort of a black scab on the NBA. We had people don't remember, we had the infamous Malice at the Palace brawl where Ron Artest, then of the Indiana Pacers, they're playing at the Palace in Detroit against the Pistons. Artest, laying out on the table, fan throws a drink, and chaos ensues.
Yes. So what's your question for me there? Because
So
I'm gonna let you set that one up.
How was that viewed by the NBA? that
Wow.
event.
How do you think it maybe changed basketball?
What it did, it first of all, it just your immediate reaction from the corporate side of it, you're just horrified. You cannot have your players going into the stands and engaging the fans in that way. What probably changed most about the NBA was that the commissioner had to let the players know that this is serious, and the length of the suspensions.
I think that says here 9 players were suspended for a combined 146 games.
Right.
And cost them a total of $11 million in salaries.
There you go. Because I think it was less than 2 years later that Carmelo Anthony had a bit of a scrap on the court as a Knick when he was with Denver.
Yep.
And that nearly escalated.
Spilled into the crowd.
Yes.
Or into the photographers.
It got right. It got, and there was a point where, are we seeing a repeat? And I think that at some point, yes, they're athletes, they're competitive, they're hot-headed, you're going to lose your temper. But I think at some point that flashback, okay, the players said, we can't have another Pacers-Pistons situation because that was just replayed endlessly. I know that within 12 hours, the NBA had sent a group of investigators on a plane to go to Detroit and start pulling videotape, interviewing security, and the players and coaches, and you kind of had to say, okay, you know what, David Stern's got to talk to the players and the union and say, look, this can never happen again, because marketing partners are going to walk away.
Right.
You're going to turn off a generation of fans who are going to stop going to games. Obviously things like beer sales cut off.
Yeah.
Clearly, security was improved. If you ever seen on a court when there's a timeout, you have people in suits standing on the court, kind of just looking around. You got to obviously Ron Artest. I'm not saying he instigated it, because the players. I think it was Ben Wallace, right?
Yes,
right.
With 50 seconds left in the fourth quarter, Artest gave Ben Wallace a hard foul when he went
Yeah,
for a
and
layup.
Artest was sort of protesting the foul, laying out, he's at the beach on the scorer's
Think
table
to
there.
entice
Right.
Wallace
And you
as
see,
well.
all of a sudden, you see a drink fly in, hit him. He gets up, and then he goes after. I think even after the guy who didn't throw it.
Been debated.
Like
yeah.
it was, the guy's like pointing at him, like he's the one. And then,
It's clearly awful to see. Most people don't have their company business on the front page of a newspaper or on the internet or on the television, and this story just played itself over and over and over again. And as a corporate employee, you can't discuss this with the media. You can't discuss this with your marketing partners. You can't, you have to deal with it, but you can't publicly talk about it, and I didn't even really discuss it with family or friends just because I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
You're embarrassed by this. Yeah. And you don't want your players to be all lumped together. But let's face it, you've got athletes making a lot of money doing something really stupid, and the fans are involved. And I think what David thought was probably the worst of his 30-year career at that point was like, I need to get in front of this and level the suspensions that he did.
I mean, for me, I think that.
Yeah, from a fan point of view, I want to hear from a fan point of view, because you guys are the.
Unfortunately for me, that's one of the iconic images of the NBA of the past 10 years.
Oh, well, that's not good.
I know that's not good
not
at all.
good.
I mean, maybe it's because it's the only time, well, not the only time in the NBA you've seen fans engaging and whatnot, and punches. I mean, you see punches being thrown every now and again, but not like full-on brawl. And I always remember Jermaine O'Neal, who's on the Pacers at the time, all-star during that time, good player, and a fan runs on the court, and he goes to throw a punch and slips on the beer.
Yeah.
You just see him go down, and that's all I remember. I remember everything else, but that's the one image that stands out to me. Jermaine O'Neal just taking the digger.
Because that game was it's on a Friday night. The game was on ESPN, and I know a lot of kids are watching a Friday night ESPN game. The game's on TNT and ESPN Monday through Thursday, not so much it's a school night. And you obviously have to express to your fan base that this is wrong. We're going to take steps to correct it, and we're going to make sure that the players involved understand the severity. Because let's face it, Ron Artest is still playing in the NBA.
Yes.
Okay, as is Jermaine O'Neal. Okay, Steven Jackson, I believe, was also
Yep,
involved.
yep,
So
he was on Indiana.
so clearly, they at least turned the corner and said, okay, it happened. Got to turn a page. Got to move forward, as that cliche goes. But I think they just, I think the rest of the players understood that this is serious. This is really something that can't ever, and you haven't seen it again. You've seen an occasional scrap, and let's face it, it's going to happen in all sports, but you can't have it at that level.
I mean, nothing to that extent as well. And I got to agree. I mean, unfortunately, anytime I think about the Pacers, I think about that scrap.
Well, hopefully now that the Pacers have got Roy Hibbert and Granger and West and Frank Vogel, that the Pacers have now they finally turned a page from that. Because let's face it, it set the franchise back. It nearly killed the fan base.
I mean, ESPN itself, they had an annual thing saying, "Oh, this is the anniversary of Palace to Palace Brawl," and just bring more light back to it.
Well, it's what it is. It's, again, sometimes people have to learn very hard lessons. Okay, so for the NBA, listen, you have a lot of young guys making a lot of money, and I think at some point those guys are now veterans who can kind of tell, the guys coming in, look, that was a bad scene. That was horrible. And, the one thing the NBA does is that they have a rookie orientation. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Okay, so you have the NBA draft, right? 2 rounds, about 60 players are chosen, okay? Once the guys all sign their contracts, they get called in for about a week to 7 to 10 days. They go to a little town about upstate New York, about 40 miles north of New York, and they are sequestered in a hotel, and they spend that time dealing with NBA corporate executives who walk them through, okay, you're NBA rookies. Welcome to orientation camp. Here's what you're going to expect. You've got 82 games now. You're going to have to maintain your own lifestyle. You're going to have to pay your rent on your apartments now. You're going to have to find a place to live. You're going to have to do your own shopping. So you need to automatically, your moms and dads aren't here for you unless you bring your mom and, unless you live with your mom and dad, right? And they explain to them, here are places you shouldn't go to on the road, okay? Here are people that you shouldn't be hanging around with. And there's almost okay, if you don't take our word for it, well, the next day, a bunch of NBA veterans come in who are still in the league, and they talk about their finances and situation. And then, okay, day 3, well, if you don't believe them, here's a bunch of retired NBA players, and you can see where they are in life. And, have they saved their money? Have they, behaved as, have they prepared for their post-NBA career? So there is a kind of a generational passing of the torch, and they do this every year. And this way, I'm sure at some point somebody will call in Ron Artest after he retires and say, explain to the rookies, Ron, what you did, because there's going to be a time where a bunch of rookies are not going to have any idea what Ron Artest in that situation happened, which is a good thing. The NBA and the NBA brings them to the corporate office, and they tell them these are the people who are going to help you. You're now coworkers, so the players are my coworkers. So when dealing with the players on any level at an event at the NBA store, they're my coworkers. We're in it together. Their paychecks might have more zeros, okay, but we're still all towards the same goal, that make sure the NBA brand is, we're as professional as we can be.
Right.
So moving on from one of the most horrendous times for the
Yes.
NBA, going to one of the greatest single performances in NBA history, talking about Kobe Bryant's 81 points against the Toronto Raptors in 2006. And I know Steve has the official stat
the official
line.
stats.
Yes, in case people have forgotten, read these numbers for Kobe. The night of that game, he scores 81, the second highest total in NBA history.
Just because I know from that game, another iconic image, Kobe goes behind the back and dunks against the Raptors, and you're just watching it. I think he went like 28 for 46 or something like that.
Yes, 28 for 46
Okay.
from the floor, including 7 of 13 from three-point range and 18 of 20 from the foul line.
Nice. 90% Kobe from the free throw line.
When you look at it, it was almost like Kobe was the Harlem Globetrotters against the Generals, really.
How many assists that game did Kobe have?
Kobe had 2 assists. He had, a total of 81 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists,
Good job.
3 steals, and 1 block.
Okay, so I can speak to that because the game happened on a Sunday night in January. Okay, now a lot
remember,
of
yeah.
Yeah, I do, because you're so, you wake up the next morning. I tend to listen to just either a quick news burst on a radio or on television, and I'll go to work. And when I heard 81 points for Kobe, well, you can go to work at the NBA and you will get a daily media recap of any big news or just stories on the internet. And there it is, and you break down Kobe's numbers, and it's just shocking because it's Wilt Chamberlain at 100, and then it's Kobe at 81.
Yeah.
So what we were able to do at the Global Merchandiser Group, within 3 days, we actually had NBA T-shirts made up from Kobe's game, picture of Kobe from the game, the stat line. We had mini basketballs with the 81 points and the stats on there. So at the NBA, you're able to react to things very quickly, because I think this was, what year was that? Was that
2006.
2006? Okay. Obviously, Facebook and social media they were just infants, right? MySpace was the
the big thing.
yeah, right. So I think it took about 24 hours for people to go, what do you mean Kobe scored 81 points? So in that time, we could say, okay, people are starting to talk about this. Let's see what we can do. And we had a Laker jersey, 81, Bryant, and we put it on a mannequin in the front window. And within 2 days, we had T-shirts, and so we were able to kind of bring people. That's what the NBA store was. You're bringing fans as close to the game as possible without actually going to a game. And the fact that we sold all those T-shirts and all those mini basketballs, and we had a jumbotron on the scoreboard, and we ran that game from NBA TV, and you could see the buzz. Now I met Kobe once.
Okay.
Okay, so Kobe.
Well, was he a humble guy? I gotta ask.
Yes. Now I'll describe how he came in, and then you tell me.
Okay. An entourage or something.
Okay, so Kobe comes into the NBA store with just two kind of, I would guess, just kind of big guys, just to kind of make sure.
Little bodyguards.
Yeah, kind of, I would think, right? So Kobe's wearing a pair of Oakley sunglasses and a San Francisco 49er jersey with Jerry Rice's number. Okay, so Kobe's at the front door. And I think the oxygen got sucked out of the room because people couldn't, who was that at the front door? Is that Kobe? Okay, so the NBA store if you've never been there, it's a circular store. Okay, so Kobe on the left side is walking through the store, and now people are kind of just following him in his wake. And he's never been here, and he's kind of looking around. Now it's my job to intercept any athletes, NBA players, and offer assistance. And I quickly sensed that, oh my God, I think about 80 people are going to, kind of just be around him.
Right.
And I meet Kobe halfway. I introduce myself, shake his hand. He was polite. I said, Kobe, do you need help shopping? He goes I think I may have to do this at another time, because now 100 people.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, Kobe, follow me. I'll get you to the front door. And we took about a 30-second walk, got to the front door, thanked his bodyguards, thanked Kobe, and away he went. And the place, if you ever been in a place where you're just shocked that something's happened, people were speechless. Like, did Kobe Bryant just really come? And that's the level of fan interaction that I saw. And Kobe's, I think, personality, just for 20 minutes, people were just shaking their heads going, that was Kobe Bryant. And that,
Yeah.
And I think Kobe probably liked it. But, we every year, any NBA player could contact me and our staff to help get merchandise, to them quickly. And I think that moment I knew Kobe was going to be a big deal. Okay, and Kobe obviously he's a great player. I think you put him in the top 25. If you could get him one more run to the finals, it would have to be with another team, because the Lakers, as currently constructed, are not going there.
Dwight Howard and everything, that drama.
They won't go
Right.
deep. I guess so too.
So, moving that back to current times here,
Okay.
before we head out here, give us a prediction for the Spurs versus Heat finals.
Oh,
Who do
you want me
think's
to-
going to?
Oh, you're going on record here? Okay, well, you guys go first, and I'll tell you what I think. How about that?
Steve?
You're the host. I'll defer to the host first, then I'll extend an opinion.
I like the Spurs, but Heat in 6.
Heat in 6.
Okay.
Okay. See, I think the Heat are better than the Spurs just because of LeBron. I think the Spurs have better overall depth, but I think LeBron is out of this world. So I say Heat in 7, because I think the Spurs are going to give him a good fight.
Okay. I look at the Spurs have had a 9-day layoff, and they've just been studying game tape of the Heat. And Greg Popovich is clearly one of the top 5 coaches of all time in the NBA. I have a feeling he's probably found something that nobody else has seen, or a strategy to let LeBron get his 50 points and make Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, like, wear them out.
Yeah.
Essentially, let Dwayne Wade take 15 and 20 shots in game 1 and game 2. All of a sudden, Dwayne Wade is now out of gas. Same thing with Chris Bosh. And it's almost like a laying in wait for them.
Yes.
If you're asking me, to have an opinion, sure, I could see the Spurs winning this in 7 games.
Okay.
But I could see it if the Spurs don't win it in 6, they'll have a big problem in game 7, because they also, I don't want to call them old, but they got a lot of mileage on them.
They're a couple of grizzled vets.
Absolutely.
That's all right. We like grizzled vets.
Yeah.
Grizzled vets are good.
All right, so thank you everyone for tuning in to the 3rd episode here at Sports Shatter TV. Again, I'm your host, Evan Medell, alongside my co-host here, Steve Atkinson, and our special guest for this evening, Steve Candeloro. Again, he was a former NBA executive for nearly 10 years.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thanks for
coming.
showing up. And don't forget to tune in next week for the 4th episode of Sports Shatter TV.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.